Over the past weekend, new information pertaining to the Alec Baldwin shooting incident has emerged. And while I don't normally care to talk about celebrity gossip and distraction stories, I don't actually think this one is too big of a distraction. I certainly think there are more important things to talk about, like Fauci and the dog experiments, or several counties of Maryland wanting to secede. But culturally, I think this is the kind of thing that we do need to talk about for a few reasons. One, gun rights, gun safety, but also how politics is playing a role in whether or not people want to hold Alec Baldwin accountable. Let me just say something right off the bat to clear up the details. For those that don't know the context, I'm assuming most of you do, but I'll make it quick. Alec Baldwin is filming a new movie called Rust. He was working with a gun as part of a scene. It discharged and it struck a cinematographer, killing her, hit her in the stomach. Apparently, it may have even damaged her spinal cord, but nonetheless, she ended up losing her life. And it went through her and hit the shoulder of the director. Now, many on the left are saying it was an accident, it's not his fault. Many people who work on film sets are saying, I work on film sets, it's not his fault. And it's really amazing. It may be due to the fact that Alec Baldwin is a very prominent political activist. He rags on Trump and Trump supporters. He promotes leftist ideals all day. Establishment, not really leftist, like the establishment Democrats. And I believe that's probably the only reason they're defending him. If it was anyone else, someone not famous or someone on the right, they'd absolutely be blaming this person and saying, this is why we need gun laws. At the same time, you have a viral tweet from someone saying, I can't believe that people think Alec Baldwin should be in jail, and also that Kyle Rittenhouse is a hero. When I saw that tweet, it's got 5,000 retweets. People on the left are absolutely pushing this narrative. Kyle Rittenhouse has nothing to do with this. It's a completely different circumstance, but they're making a political point. And the problem is they just don't know anything, which is why I think this story actually is important. Now, I don't know exactly how to cut through all the lies about what happened and to make the important points that need to be made to the people who will never hear them. Maybe the best thing you can do is try and share this video with them and we can go over the details and I can explain to you why it's Alec Baldwin's fault. He was the producer of the movie. A lot of people are like, it's not his fault. It's the armorer's fault. He hired these people. He was the boss. He was in charge. And that's one of the best points made I've heard so far. Someone said, as the actor, it's not his fault. As the producer, it was. I say, none of that matters. As the person being handed a gun, it's his fault. Period. Now, I want to make a few very important points. First, the new information we have is that Alec Baldwin was actually drawing the weapon and pointing it at the camera. That, as my understanding, violates every safety rule in Hollywood and in any standard range or a shooting incident. I'm not talking about active conflict. In any circumstance where you are intending to use a weapon in defense or offense, like war, you only point the weapon at whatever it is you intend to destroy, period. I don't care if it's an airsoft gun, a paintball gun, unless you are intending to point it at someone and inflict that damage. Like I said, paintball gun or airsoft could be for sport, but it's going to do some damage. It's going to make contact. You do not point that weapon. He was pointing it at the camera. We had tons of people say on set, you never actually point the weapon at an actor or crew or camera or equipment. Editing is used to make it seem like you are. And that's one of the big issues I think here, that Alec Baldwin was completely negligent. Now, here's some important things. Alec Baldwin was not handed a prop gun. He was handed a real gun with a live round. He didn't check. The gun did not misfire. It fired and was negligent discharge. Baldwin did not intend to harm anyone, so we believe. But as a producer and the person wielding the weapon, it is 100% his fault. It is his fault. There's a lot to talk about. Let's read some of the news, and then I want to talk about the politics of this, how it's absolutely become a left versus right issue. I'll just say it like this. If I say, like, I'm an armorer, here's a gun, point it at that person and pull the trigger for the film, and then you you're going to get in trouble. Another example someone gave, I hand you the keys to a car and say, everything on the car works. Get in it and drive as fast as you can towards that woman. And then you do. Oh, but they told me the car was fine. The brakes didn't work. Sorry, that's your fault. You got in a vehicle. You drove it towards someone. I don't understand how people don't get this, but I think it's very simple. It's politics. Alec Baldwin's garbage impersonation of Trump is all they need. And they're going to defend him tooth and nail, even though he's literally handed a real gun. I'm assuming, based on it's a period film, I'm assuming, 45 Colt, long Colt as some call it. Here's what they say. Some interesting information here. LA Times reporting. In the newly released document, Souza said someone identified the weapon as a cold gun, meaning it did not have any live rounds, but instead the gun discharged, striking Hutchins in her chest. Oh, I thought it was her stomach, it was in her chest. And Souza in his right shoulder, according to a Santa Fe County, New Mexico sheriff's detective's affidavit used to obtain a search warrant. Hutchins was pronounced dead at an Albuquerque hospital. The shooting took place after 6 members of the film's crew walked off the set after complaining to the production company about payment and housing. Camera operator Reed Russell told Detective Joel Cano the affidavit offered the most detailed chronology of the unfolding tragedy. The day started late because the production hired another camera crew and was working with only one camera. Souza said 3 people were handling the gun for the scene. Armorer Hannah Gutierrez Reed, then Assistant Director Dave Halls, who handed the gun to Baldwin. Halls had taken one of the 3 prop guns. This is where they're manipulating everybody. They are not prop guns, period. Now, I know on set they say any gun used is a prop gun. That sounds like media manipulation to protect the industry. There's real guns and there's fake guns. Is it a replica? Is it a prop? Or is it a live gun? Baldwin was given a real gun with real bullets in it. They say Halls had taken one of the 3 one of the 3 guns set up by Gutierrez Reed on a cart left outside the structure because of COVID restrictions. Halls did not know live rounds were in the gun when he handed it to Baldwin. Why didn't he check? And Halls yelled, "Cold gun," according to the affidavit. Souza said cast and crew preparing the scene before lunch, but then had a meal away from the rehearsal area around 12:30 p.m. When they returned, Souza said he wasn't sure if the gun was checked again, the affidavit said. Joel said as far as he knows, no one gets checked for live ammunition on their person prior and after the scenes being filmed. The only thing checked are the firearms to avoid live ammunition being in them. Joel stated there should never be live rounds whatsoever near or around the scene. This is interesting. They're saying that they were preparing for a scene before lunch, had the meal away from the area. So is it possible that someone went in with live ammo and loaded the gun with it? That's one of the interesting questions about this. A bit too speculative. I don't know. When they came back from lunch, a creeping shadow prompted the camera to be moved to a different angle. As Baldwin was explaining how he was going to draw his gun and where his arm would be when he pulled the gun from the holster, it discharged, Russell said. Well, in one statement that Jack Posobiec, he scooped the LA Times. He said, set member tells Human Events that Alec Baldwin was rehearsing a church scene with the cinematographer when he drew the gun and said something like, "Is this what you want?" and then pulled the trigger. Director was standing behind her. I actually believe the statement provided Jack Posobiec. Why? It's more blunt, but also it's what we now know to have occurred for the most part. Now, I'll explain. The director was standing behind her. We know that to be true. He was rehearsing the scene. What's added to the statement that Jack Posobiec has is this what you want? Now, I don't think that means he was pointing at him trying to shoot him. He was rehearsing the scene, but pulling the trigger is the key part. He was pulling the trigger. They say it discharged. The LA Times does not include the fact that he pulled the trigger, at least according to one member on the set. So it said he was looking over Hutchins' shoulder when the gun discharged. Hutchins grabbed her midsection, stumbled backwards, and was assisted to the ground. It's crazy. Apparently, this is like, wow, look at this. The search warrant said Russell recalled hearing a loud bang, seeing a bloody Souza, and hearing Hutchins say she couldn't feel her legs. The shooting came after crew members raised concerns about safety conditions on the set. 2 Rust crew members told the LA Times less than a week earlier a stunt double had fired 2 accidental prop gun discharges after being told the gun was cold, Alec Baldwin's at fault. I think so let's get into this. Let's get into this. This is really, really great. Here's the viral tweet. I can't believe we share the earth with people who think Alec Baldwin belongs in jail, but Kyle Rittenhouse is a hero. I can very easily break down for you why Alec Baldwin belongs in jail and Kyle Rittenhouse is a hero. Now let me slow down. I don't actually believe Alec Baldwin belongs in jail, but I understand the argument for it. I personally don't think Kyle Rittenhouse is a hero, but he certainly doesn't belong in jail. But I can make an argument for why people think he does. I'll just tell you my opinion, just so you understand. It was clearly an accident, and I don't think putting Alec Baldwin in prison will change the fact that he's probably going to be a lot more careful from this point on, but there is still probable cause. And I wonder if an investigation will reveal some serious criminal activity. Kyle Rittenhouse was responding to very serious rioting. A 70-year-old man was bludgeoned over the head and left bleeding on the ground. I can certainly understand why he wanted to go out and help. And he stopped people from pushing a flaming dumpster into a gas station. Now, a lot of people will say, clearly he's being a hero. I get that. I do. I kind of feel like across the board, he put himself in a situation. He did it. Honestly, when he restrains himself from shooting at people when they back away and things like that, he did good in that capacity. I can understand that. I personally think he should not have been there. I know it's tough. That's just my opinion, and it's not like it's one of those easy ethical lines. I'm not going to be like super adamant. He should have never been there. I kind of think he shouldn't have been there, but I certainly understand why he'd want to be, and I can certainly understand the argument as to why people think he was a hero in the circumstances. He was defending himself. He only fired when fired upon. But I got to say, as much as there's very serious problems on the ground in Kenosha, 17-year-old kid coming out with a rifle, not a good idea. So I'm not going to pretend that like I believe he's a hero just because of the politics of it. I don't. I think he was a kid who thought he was doing something good, and I think he was doing something foolish. That being said, there could have been a major gas station explosion. So, it is what it is. I certainly think it was a clear case of self-defense, and we'll see how the trial plays out. But let's break down why Alec Baldwin does belong in jail. Now, these are both really interesting cases, and I'll put it this way. 51% I say no jail. 49% I say lock him up. It's not an easy moral line because there's a lot of points to be made, and I think ultimately this might have to go before a jury. I'll say this. I don't know if he should go to jail. I do know this is a criminal charge. Alec Baldwin must be criminally charged for this. You do not get to take a gun, point it at people, and then pull the trigger and then say, whoopsie. Whatever comes out of that gun is your fault. Negligent discharge, manslaughter. But let me go in detail. We have reporting now that there were other negligent discharges on set when the crew did not tell people. When the crew told people it was a cold gun. The people with the weapons didn't check them. Alec Baldwin is a producer on the film. He's in charge. That means there's several things to consider. Alec Baldwin has prior training with firearms from other movies. Now, I don't think that means he's going to be a great shot or that he understands everything about guns, but witnesses people who have worked with him said on the set of other movies, he went by the book on everything. So what happened now that Alec Baldwin with prior training didn't check the weapon, pointed it at people, and pulled the trigger? That was brought up by Robert Barnes last week when we had him on the Tim Castrell podcast. He said a prosecutor should be looking into how he, with training and knowing how these scenes are done, how did he violate these rules? It's an important question. Then we have other factors. As the producer on the film, it's his responsibility when the gun discharges more than once to be like, we've got a very serious safety issue, and the buck stops with him. Now, those instances alone don't say much. If you're a producer on a film and you hire people and those people do a bad job and there's discharges, you run over and you say, I'm firing these people, we're shutting this down, it's dangerous. And I wouldn't blame you if, let's say this. Stunt double has the gun, was told it was cold, it fires, it hits somebody. I don't think Alec Baldwin is going to go to prison or jail or get a criminal charge for that. And in that instance, I don't think the stunt double necessarily would either. However, the stunt double should have the individual with the gun should have absolutely checked. If that was all it was, I'd say it's a tragedy. It's an accident. Add these things together. Baldwin has prior experience working with guns on set. Baldwin was the boss and knew that there were problems. The crew was already walking off set because of some of these problems. Then he himself is handed the gun and does not check. There's no way that Alec Baldwin didn't know about those discharges. I mean, he's a producer, right? Now, even if he didn't know, I'd still argue that's criminal negligence. You mean you're operating a business with guns lying around. You didn't check them. They're not secured. And you didn't know they were discharged? In that case, I would say it's negligence. For the most part, I would say put it before a jury. And if that was it, like he just didn't know, I'd make the argument that he was criminally negligent by not looking over the guns on his own set, taking one, pointing it at a person, and killing that person. I, however, don't think it's fair to say that Alec Baldwin didn't know about this. I mean, if the crew is threatening to walk off set, he had to know about it, right? Someone had to be like, Alec, the crew's going to quit. Why? Because the gun went off a couple times. Well, whatever. Give me the gun. Bang. Interesting. Now you have some very serious questions that get into less likely territory, but interesting territory nonetheless. Was Alec Baldwin angry? Was he really angry with the crew threatening to cancel him on his movie? Was there fighting between crew and Alec Baldwin? I think there was fighting between Alec Baldwin and the crew, as he is a producer and the crew said the conditions were garbage. The crew had said they were being treated like trash by the higher-ups and the people making the film, which includes Alec Baldwin. And then Alec Baldwin points a gun at a crew member and kills her. It's interesting, isn't it? Now, I'm not here to say I think there's a high probability that Candace Owens, I was looking at a news story, Candace Owens, that Alec Baldwin shot somebody on purpose. But we do have a story about Candace Owens I'm going to mention in a second. I was reading the title and then wrong name. Candace Owens wasn't there, by the way. No, but I don't think there's a high probability that Alec Baldwin said, I'm going to kill a crew member. I'm so mad at this person. I do think there's a possibility that Alec Baldwin said, I can't stand these people. These people annoy me. I don't care. But let's put it this way. The armorer is part of the crew. The assistant director holding the gun is part of the crew. So if you know the crew is really, really mad, and then you're handed a gun, and you know the person who handed it to you is mad at you, wouldn't you check that gun? Conservative pundit Candace Owens attacks Alec Baldwin over accidental shooting, calling it poetic justice for his previous criticism of Donald Trump. I absolutely reject that statement. I disagree, and I reject the statement from Candace Owens. Certainly understand what she's trying to say, but this woman died, man. That's not her fault. There's no poetic justice in an innocent person dying because Alec Baldwin's a dick. I got the point. You know, Alec Baldwin said, I wonder how it feels to accidentally kill somebody or to something like that, referring to a cop, or to wrongfully kill somebody. And everyone was pointing this out, and I'm like, dude, I'm not okay with that. Whatever went down with Alec Baldwin, whatever's going on politically, a woman who was working on a film took a bullet to the chest and died. What did she do? That was justice. That was poetic justice. No, that's not true. This is not karmic retribution or anything. There is no justice in a wealthy multimillionaire accidentally killing someone else. There's no justice there, and there's no justice in someone dying, at least in my opinion, for the most part. I'm against the death penalty. There is, in certain circumstances like war and self-defense, I understand why someone would need to kill somebody else, but I oppose the death penalty. So I reject this. I can certainly, again, understand the sentiment and agree with it to a certain degree. Alec Baldwin is a dick. He's overly political. He was negligent across the board. He was responsible for all of this in every capacity, and now it's all falling in on him. But the person who lost their life was this woman, who was not Alec Baldwin, who was not a high-profile personality, who maybe was a Democrat and leftist and said nasty things about Trump too. But Alec Baldwin doesn't deserve to be hurt over his opinions. This woman doesn't deserve to be hurt for any reason. I mean, nobody, in my opinion, unless again, self-defense. Alec Baldwin can say all the worst things in the world. He can be a really, really bad person, but I do not think that anyone is deserving of getting shot for being a dick. So poetic justice, I disagree with. In the end, it's amazing that there are many people on the left who are telling me that Alec Baldwin was not responsible for this shooting. He was handed a gun. And when that was all I knew, it was his fault. That's what I said. If someone comes to me and they hand me a gun, the first thing I'm going to do is, if it's a revolver, I'm going to open it up and check to make sure it is not loaded. And if there are rounds in it, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take them out and inspect them. We have been to, I've been to many ranges. We have a range. We're building another range. Someone hands me a gun. They hand it to, so first of all, we all know gun safety when we're on the range. We take it very seriously. You ever see somebody getting lax? We flip out, we yell at them, but someone will pull out a revolver. So I've got a revolver. I've got the governor. Fires 45 ACP, 45 Colt, and 410 shotgun shells. And they have it pointed down. The cylinder is out, can't be fired, and they're holding it in such a way. And when it's given to me, I will take the rounds out and make sure I know what they are. Because if you are just handed a gun and you're like, it's good, and then something goes wrong, you did not inspect the weapon before you sought to discharge something potentially dangerous. Now, that being said, a revolver is easy to do. To be fair, people will load a magazine and hand it to you, and you assume you're looking at it like, okay, these are 9mm, we're good to go, and you'll load it. You'll inspect the weapon, make sure everything's good, and then we take safety very seriously. But sometimes there's bad rounds. So I have a Beretta, and some of these 9mm are like they just don't work. They jam nonstop. And so I'm like, as soon as we got the first jam, I was like, okay, we clear it. We're going again. We get a second jam. I'm like, it's jamming again, like after like 2 rounds. And it's like, well, clear it out. Fire it again. Jam. Take it out. Nope. Done. Too many jams. I'm not going to screw around with that. And we've had other instances where it's like, okay, that was not okay. You get any sign of problem, step away. There's a viral video of a guy who was firing a 50 BMG and the gun exploded on him. He had no way of knowing that was going to happen. But that's why whenever I'm on the range, I'm like, safety is paramount. Now think about the circumstance with Alec Baldwin. Leftists not calling for gun control over this? I find that strange. Anyway, look, I don't know. I really wanted to talk about this. It's not the most important story in the world. Some people are saying it's a distraction, but I think when it comes to gun issues, personal responsibility, and politics, they're all starting to come together on this one. So I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up at 1 p.m. in this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.